Welcome to Hassle-Free Hosting with AirDXB, the podcast where we explore the world of short-term rentals in Dubai and beyond. Hello, everybody, and welcome, Joanna, our latest addition at AirDXB. You've come here to set up and move forward and progress our investment department, which is assisting buyers and, of course, sellers with their real estate needs. Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you.
How are you today?
Good, thank you, Greg. How are you?
I'm very good.
Yeah.
That's lovely. No one ever asks me that when I ask this question.
It's important.
Everyone just says, I'm great. And I'm just like, okay, well, me too.
We want to know how you are.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So, Joanna, a bit about your past. Let's get straight into that. So,
Absolutely.
You were in shortlets, weren't you?
I was.
And you've jumped to the other side.
I have, yeah.
I know. Well, what can we say? Shortlets. So how was that? How did you find shortlets in general, and especially in the market we're in now, and of course in the last 2-3 years where it's become incredibly popular? So shortlets in general, do you miss it?
Do you know
want
what?
to get back into it?
Yeah, shortlets is always going to be part of my experience. It's going to be part of the reason why I love the industry. Shortlets for me has always been a lot closer to the rental style of back home in the UK. We have a lot more flexibility in the UK when it comes to coming in and out of leases. We don't have these restrictions whereby we're having to serve notices back home. So it was more of a second nature renting and growing up in the UK.
And you did how long shortlets? You were running
over 2 years.
2 years, and you were running the team, and you had
the
hundreds
full
of
department. It was
properties
it was my little baby, as this one is yours.
Yeah.
So I love shortlets, and it kind of comes hand in hand with the brokerage side because it feeds into the other aspects of brokerage. So if you're not going to shortlet, if you're not going to long-term lease, if you're not going to sell, then shortlet's another option for you. Shortlet's not for everybody. Long-term leasing's not for everybody, and sales isn't for everybody. So it just adds a little bit of extra something that we can offer people.
Who did you find that shortlets was for? Predominantly. I know it jumps around, but predominantly.
Predominantly shortlets was for those investors that want to have multiple properties on their books. They have a portfolio and they don't want to just put all of their eggs in one basket. They don't want to flip all of their investments. They don't want to put all of their investments on long term. They want to have that variety, and they tend to assess what's best for them depending on the area that they've bought, the type of property that they have. Some properties are going to do better on short term, some are going to do better on long term. And I find that it gives people the flexibility that long term doesn't necessarily give people in terms of being able to
I would say necessarily. I think 100% it doesn't, because you have that flexibility. You have that flexibility within shortlet.
Yes.
So that is such a huge, all-encompassing thing that if you are in that situation with your property that you want that flexibility, you want to sell it for argument's sake.
Yes.
That's your choice.
Essential. And as a broker, it's so much harder to sell a property that is on long term than it is on short term.
I want to get into this later on in this podcast.
Yeah.
So that's the point I really want to drill down on, is going into exactly that point. Selling a property that has a long-term tenant.
Yeah.
And then one was short. So I really want to jump into that, but we're going to do that later on. So with the shortlet side of things, did you see a change in the last 2-3 years?
Yes. So once upon a time, when long-term rents were not so high, coming out the back of COVID, that bridge that was between long-term and short-term was huge. You would have your short-term rents at X amount, significantly higher monthly than your long-term rents broken down monthly. And it was making it so attractive for investors because they were getting so much more money alongside the flexibility, alongside being able to use their own properties that they've spent all this money on. Yeah. It's something that I know if I was buying a property here, I'd want to be able to use it for my mum coming, my sister coming, instead of them paying for hotels.
Yeah.
And
it's a sizable amount.
Exactly.
I'll just say, we had Louis on here, and he was saying one client in particular was spending 15,000 dirhams a year just in hotel bills.
Which, why would I do that if I've spent all this money on an investment property?
Exactly.
So then being able to fill that gap with a renter, but knowing that, okay, you actually have to leave at the end of this and I'm not stuck with you for X amount of time. So in that respect, I think it's a really great option for an investor.
Yeah, agreed. And then, so if we compare it then to long term, as the market has progressed, as we know, we can't hide from the fact that this market has blown up. Absolutely.
Consistently, it's just,
Yeah. Do you think anything's going to slow it down?
There's a lot of conversation.
If we talk about, long term, will anything slow this down?
There's a lot of conversations about what's going to happen. Are the rents going to keep increasing? Ultimately, I don't feel like they can increase forever.
Yeah.
However, I also don't see them slowing down anytime soon. I feel like we're at a point where it's probably going to plateau and it's going to stick at a steady pace, and it's going to take something like we've seen way back when that's going to have that effect. But right now...
What, negatively or positively?
Negatively. I don't think it's something that's going to change anytime soon, purely based on, in the last year, the number of people moving to Dubai. And that's, again, not slowing down. You don't even need market statistics to see how many people are coming in. You can just look on the streets. You can look on the roads, the traffic, the malls, the busyness. People that you speak to, everybody wants to move to Dubai because of everything that's going on in the world. They feel like it's such a safe haven. And Dubai is voted time after time one of the safest cities to live in, one of the best expat cities to live in. So the more people come, because there's such a huge undersupply of properties, there are more people than properties. So why
do you think it's going to plateau then?
It'll plateau because all of a sudden everyone's building, everyone's got these, investments and releases that are coming out over the next year. At back end of Q4, we've got properties in Sports City, we've got JVC, and Benghazi have a residence that's going to be handing over in the next 7-8 months in JVC. So right now, there's a supply issue, but there'll come a point where
balances.
Everything's going to balance out because developers have this awareness. They are shooting up buildings left, right, and centre like you've never seen. You turn a corner and you've not been there a few months and you just see a tower. So,
and a lot of off-plan launches.
A lot of off-plan launches,
which we'll talk about again later on. But yeah, so there is that point. So, have you seen a change in attitude from tenants and how they're now approaching long term? Are they sticking to a certain budget? Are they going with the market? Are they changing into different geographical areas?
Absolutely.
What are you seeing? What's the migration and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I'm finding people are now happy to move further out. Everyone seems to be migrating further towards the desert. They're becoming more... Places like Damac Hills 2, Emaar South, even if you're looking at somewhere like Mira, where it's actually not as far as people once felt. Like once upon a time, if you weren't within 10 minutes of everything in Dubai, you were a million miles away. Whereas now people are happier to take that little bit of an extra commute because what you can get for your rental prices for the size of your property further afield versus if you stick to the likes of Marina, downtown, Business Bay, coastal communities like Springs, they're so much more further afield. And I think now people are just getting a little bit of fed up of greediness from the landlord side of things, wanting all of this money, rental increases. People are being served notices left, right and centre. So it is becoming a lot hard for a renter. I'd go as far as saying people are even relocating in some instances to the likes of RAC. That's becoming that's becoming a more notable topic of people discussing who's moved here. Is it worth the move? What we can get here versus what we can get in Dubai. It's definitely a topic that people are discussing.
You're seeing a change in it. And I suppose as well, there comes a point with these renters, their budget will only allow them to go so far in these areas. And it couples with a conversation you and I were having 2 hours ago about a villa down in Emaar South, and the price point on the golf course about 3.5 million, wasn't it?
Yeah.
4 bedrooms
plus maids
2,800 square feet.
Yeah, stunning villa.
3.5 mil.
Literally.
So it's not that far. You don't have to pack a packed lunch to get down there. as we know, when people used to say live in the back hills, you're like, oh God, here we go.
Yeah.
That you can go down to these locations. And what I've seen with these locations is that they're better. So when you compare them to an Emirates Living product, which was launched to early 2000s, and now you're looking at more recent projects that are being launched, there's a lot more amenities.
Yeah.
There's a lot more space. There's a lot more, the landscaping is, and it's different because of course it's going to be because it's 20 years later. So you're seeing this migration of people not only doing it from a monetary situation, they're saying what's a better product.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's so much land available further afield. People are accepting it a lot more. And if you think about, again, us back in the UK, we wouldn't think twice about a 40-minute commute. We wouldn't think, we don't have everything on our doorstep. If you live slightly in the country, I'm from the northeast, there's so much countryside. You don't expect to live in the city centre back home. So why would we expect to do it here? It's something that I personally prefer. Having children, it feels a little bit more like you're in the countryside of Dubai. And I like it.
It's a bit more green.
It is. It's more green. It's more quiet. There's less light pollution. And then you can come into the city and you can enjoy what Dubai has to offer, but you can also leave it when you want. and you're not constantly trying to get from your property to the shop down the street, and it's taking you 35 minutes at the wrong time because of traffic.
And the great thing is, of course, is you've got this in the way. The great thing, of course, is they build the shopping malls.
Exactly.
So they're continuously building those. So when you actually look at what you're living in, what the amenities are, whether that's a tennis court, swimming pool, gym, those sorts of things, that's the standard. Then you put in the mall, and then you put in some sort of activity site. Then you start thinking, well, hang on, whatever that may be. But what am I missing that 20 minutes down the road going towards downtown doesn't have? All right, you've got the Burj Khalifa, but when you've lived here for many years, it becomes quite a common sight, doesn't it? And you don't have to see it every day.
And you only go when people visit, and you do the tourist things, and you do the same tourist things every single visit, but you don't go and do this yourself every weekend.
No, you don't. That's why you look forward to people coming out, so you can go and be a tourist.
You remember what, it's still big.
It's still really big, isn't it? Oh, I remember this restaurant. This is great. I love it. I know I've lived here 10 years, but there we are. Yeah. So you are seeing that then with these developments, that you are getting arguably a better product. You could argue that, yes, the location, when you do look at, let's say, an Emirates Living situation or Dubai Marina, is better because, of course, you're nearer the sea.
Yeah.
So if you are a beach goer, but tenants are now looking at these areas.
Yeah.
So, and I think JVC's an absolute example.
It is.
And we're seeing what's going on with rents there, that these tenants are now saying, okay, I'm not going to pay 120,000 dirhams for a one-bedroom apartment in Dubai Marina.
Yeah,
I can save I can save what, 33%, probably more.
It's huge. JVC has been the highest transacting area that we saw last year. At the back end of last year.
Sales transactions.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
And it's because it's so up and coming. They are filling up JVC every inch of space that they can. Everything that you need's there. You have your mall, mall opened, which is a great mall, by the way.
It is,
and it's not constantly busy like it is when you go to the likes of your Mall of Emirates, your Dubai Mall. You've got everything that you need. You're still in super close distance to these places, the beach, wherever you want to go. Easy to jump in a taxi. Great location. So from that perspective, depending on your situation, it's a great place to be. But also as an investor, we're finding that more and more people are also short-terming these units, and it has some of the highest ROI.
Is that because of the entry price into it is lower?
It's because of when you're purchasing the properties, you're getting a studio and a one bed significantly lower than you would downtown Marina, but you're also short. That gap is a lot bigger between long-term and short-term than it is in places like Marina and downtown.
Yeah.
So your return on short-term is a lot higher.
Yeah.
It's definitely a better option than long-term in somewhere like JVC.
So that brings us into the next point. Well, how is the sales market then? Booming.
Expectations are as high as ever.
Sellers' expectations.
Seller expectations. So now what I'm finding is, if you're looking at Property Finder, a lot of sellers, their go-to is, okay, well, this is on Property Finder at this price, so this is what I'm wanting because this is what it's going for. Well, no, this is what it's listed at. And I think it's trying to educate sellers. Just because 10 agents have this property at this price doesn't mean it's selling for this. But we're at a point where sellers are so adamant that they're going to get X price because of what they're seeing, that it's creating a little bit of a false expectation of what things are actually selling. Buyers are then thinking, well, I actually can't get anything within that budget. And it's just taking a little bit longer to sell some properties because of that. And I feel like it's giving a false idea of what certain things are selling for.
Well, this is the problem, and I saw it back it's when X-Ray was launched, 2014.
Yeah.
Is prices shot up, and I think they were up north of 30% within 1 year.
Because we build that hype in advance.
Yeah, and a lot of people in Dubai, it's a wealthy place, they don't have to sell. I'll put it on for this. If someone pays for it, they pay for it. If they don't, I'll leave it.
This is what I'm finding.
And this, again, is creating, I suppose, that glut in property. Because if every single property on the market now was on at the right price, that would feed the demand somewhat.
Yeah, you're right. And I have a lot of sellers that actually aren't bothered about selling. They are gauging, they're testing the market, they're seeing how much can I get out of these buyers, because they know that there's no sign of things slowing down or stopping anytime soon. So they're putting it on at that price that might seem a little bit crazy right now. But if they don't sell it, they'll happily leave it sat there. So when buyers are going on and they're seeing, we have this property at this price, they're thinking that's all that they can, that's all that they have as an option. And a lot of sellers aren't really willing to reduce their price because they're waiting for that buyer that will come along and pay that price.
Majority of sellers are cash or mortgage?
I'd probably say right now it's very close. Mortgage rates are coming down, which is great. And we're already seeing them come down, which is opening up the ability for mortgages. Cash sellers.
I know. You're talking about buyers then, mortgage buyers.
Mortgage buyers,
What
yes.
about sellers?
Sellers.
Are you seeing many sellers with mortgages?
No.
None. They're all
nearly
cash.
all of my sellers are cash. Yeah,
Okay.
because they're selling properties that they've bought just after COVID.
Right, okay.
And they've either bought them on a payment plan, it's been off plan, they finished their payment plans, and they're now realising, well, actually, I've paid X amount for this, and now look at the market. I can make a load of... Talal Al Ghaf's a perfect example of this. We had buyers buying off plan with Talal Al Ghaf, a 3-bed, paying 1.8, 1.6, selling for 2.6 now, 2.7. And that was only, 3-4 years ago they were buying off plan.
Yeah.
So what they've made back in the last few years is huge. So everyone's kind of jumping on that now as well.
Yeah, okay. Effectively flipping.
Yeah.
But a very long
flipping,
period of time
like a slow
in the middle.
flip.
Just a very, very slow flip.
Yeah.
And are these people putting tenants in there, or are they short-term renting it?
Depends on the area. A lot of Talal Al Ghaf owners, as an example, they're putting long-term tenants in, they're flipping it. Short-term, you're looking at more of the buildings like SLS, downtown, Business Bay, the Bay. They were purchased off-plan 2 years ago. Now they're putting short-term tenants in because it's such a great area. Views are fantastic. So yeah, it depends on the area.
And then would they be short-term renting it with a view to potentially sell?
Yeah.
And this is then going to help the sale?
This is it. I feel like they're a little bit tentative about putting a long-term tenant in there, thinking in the back of their mind, okay, going to wait for this market to increase that a little bit more because everyone wants a little bit more of an increase. Everyone's expecting a little bit more. And then at least if they've got a short-term tenant in there, they're not struggling to get viewings booked in. They're not struggling to actually sell it vacant on transfer. To be able to advertise a property as vacant on transfer is half the battle, because no one wants to buy a property that they, 1, can't view, and 2, have to wait for somebody to leave or reserve notice if you don't sell it before the notice period's up.
And you've got all the litigation about serving it correctly for the right reasons, etc.
Exactly. And more than ever that I've noticed in the last 4 years, tenants are aware. They are so smart. They know their rights. It's a consistent topic of conversation on social media because it's happening so often. So they're making it their place.
Which is a good thing.
It is.
It's a good thing to know your rights. You've entered into that contract. It's not a one-way street.
Yeah.
We've got to respect, obviously, the person that owns it, and we've got to respect the person that's paying to live there.
Exactly.
So it's made for a different market. Because I remember the days of even 5-6 years plus ago where tenants didn't know.
Yeah.
So the
and
local,
they just accepted it.
Well, the local authorities done a fantastic job to make sure everybody knows what their rights are or aren't.
Yeah.
But of course, if you as a seller in a certain position wanting to sell or wanting to do this, of course, that could be seen as an obstacle. Having a tenant in there long term.
Exactly.
So you would suggest that if somebody was looking to sell, the next 2 years?
Yeah.
That you would stick to short term, because
Absolutely.
that then gives you that flexibility. And
Yeah, it's the flexibility, because the amount of inquiries I've had on properties, even since Christmas, in the last however long, that people are wanting to view them. And I think, okay, well, we have guests in them now because they're on short term. But if that was a long-term tenant, you're not going to be able to view this property. Once upon a time, tenants would be almost bullied into accepting a viewing, but now they know they actually don't need to let people in. So then trying to sell that property becomes so much harder.
And we're seeing that.
We're seeing it a lot. Yeah.
Well, I'm ever the advocate, obviously, from AirDXB, and what we set up for is it is short let. And short let, you're absolutely right. You're making a lot more money 3, 4, 5 years ago. And we look at when I first set the company up 5 years ago, there's 5,000 holiday homes registered, if that. Now there's 20, 25.
Everyone's
jumped on it. But what is interesting, just seeing that migration then from short term into long, because the rates have come up, which I think is serving great purpose for both. It's feeding that long-term market. It is reducing the supply of short, which is then bringing those rates up. But then, of course, when you put sale in the middle, I suppose it then comes down to that seller. What do you want? Are you keeping it for 5 years? Then long-term. But then if you want to stay in it as we discussed, or looking to sell it or something along those lines, then, of course, short-term's then your better option.
Exactly, because short-term's not for everybody. Neither is long-term. So you're going to find that it's going to fit a specific property owner. And like you say, if you've got somebody that all they want to do is purchase a property, they want to get as much as they can and they want consistent rent, and they don't want to have to think about when the next booking is, they don't want to have to worry about furnishing a property, they never care if they see the property or not, they just want it on their books to have that income, then I do suggest long term. I think it's a great option. But then you have those people that become really emotionally attached to their investments, and it's not just an income for them. They've put a lot of effort into furnishing the units. It's maybe their first investment. They want to make sure that it's looked after properly. They want to make sure that they can access the property every few weeks, every few months, or use it themselves. And in that instance, I would say, look, long term is going to be a nightmare for you. This is where you look at the short term option. You've got someone that's going to look after that property for you every time somebody enters. They're going to check everything for you. Maintenance is going to be kept on top of. Obviously, in long term, you have the maintenance sort of budget whereby, okay, if a tenant's in there, if it's a villa, anything up to 1,000 dirhams, they're going to have to pay for themselves. If you have maintenance issue after maintenance issue, at what point are tenants going to think to themselves, well, actually, I'm not going to be in here for much longer. I'm just going to leave that. Longer you leave an issue, the worse it gets. And then it becomes a big bill. So to have somebody look after your property and take care of your investment on your behalf, even more so if you don't even live in Dubai, it's a perfect option.
And that's the great thing about short let. Someone's coming in and
Exactly.
out. See, this is what makes you incredibly interesting and I think incredibly valuable, because you've done both sides of this.
Yeah.
So you've done your short let, years of it, management, understanding, seeing problems, seeing things as I see all the time. How's that gone from that to that? How did that situation arise from that to that? But it happens.
It does.
You know, I know you and I could talk now for the next week, probably month,
Yeah,
about
possibly.
stories that we've seen and all this sort of stuff. So this is what's great about having you. So if you are a seller or a buyer, you can then step into this and say, look, what you're buying and these are your options for what you're going to do with it. And you can speak obviously from experience.
Exactly. And that's where it becomes more of a consultative experience. It's not an agent with an agenda whereby, okay, I only want to sell your property because that's where I'm going to make the most money. Well, actually, no, because the best thing for you might be to put it on short term or it might be to put it on long term. And if I can give you all of the options and give you all of the pros and cons of everything, then you're making an informed decision that's right for you. And I think that's what we're missing out on in the market at the minute, where you've got thousands of real estate companies where more often than not, agents and real estate companies do get a bad rep in Dubai and they are complained about more than they're praised. So for me, it's so important to bring that experience, bring that knowledge and do the right thing and just be that agency and that company with a difference, because that's hugely lacking here. And that's where doing the right thing is going to get that. It's going to get that knowledge out there that actually not all agents are just out there to make a quick penny.
This is it.
Yeah.
And I think when we look at what we're trying to do, of course, we've got the ADXB model, and that is short-led, although it's now grown into a group and we have multiple different disciplines within it, is that we can provide the right information. Now we're doing our research reports. We've just released our end of year. We've got our Q4 coming out. We're doing lots and lots of different things to help and assist those clients.
Exactly.
To say, this isn't just me. This isn't my opinion. It's not an agenda. It's not a commission check. This is what the market is suggesting. And this is our opinion. And again, what I love about AirDXB is that we're now turning into, or already are, although we've got to progress a little bit further, into a very disciplined, very knowledgeable company that now has people from these different walks that are very vocal about, this is what we've seen and this is what we do. And we're all experienced. And we all know, you know, and it's this is how we can help these clients and get them the right property and put them in the right situation. Is it long term? Is it short term? Are you going to flip? Are you going to retain? Whatever that case, renovate. And of course, we can help out with these sorts of things.
This is it. We can help with everything. We can advise with everything. And I think that's what's important, because a lot of the time as well, you can give these opinions, but you can't necessarily do all of the outcomes. So people don't want to go from this company to this company. If we can offer everything and say, look, these are all of your options, these are why we've presented these to you, then they're going to get the best outcome.
Yeah, agreed. I gave you, or I give you, I'm not going to give you, let's pretend I give you 3 million dirhams.
Okay.
Top 3 things as a buyer you should then be looking at. So you've got 3 million dirhams, you're going into the market, you've got different ideas with the locations you want to be in, the agents that you want to deal with, the type of property that you want to buy. What would you do? What would you be looking at?
Am I an investor?
What do you
Or
want
a buy
to
for me?
what do you want to be?
I think...
So let's look at two sides of the coin. If you're an end user now,
Yeah.
what would you be looking out for? And if you're an investor, what would you be looking out for?
Okay, for me as an end user, I'm very at that point in my life now where I want things as easy as possible. And I'm not drawn to buying something, going through the sales process, and then giving myself extra work to make it how I want it. I just want to purchase, transfer, walk in, and I'm good to go. And for me now, purchasing and investing 3 million dirhams, I want to get as much for my money as I can. And I'm not going to do that coastal. I need to move out.
Okay.
And that's why I am looking at properties like Emaar South or neighbouring villa communities that are slightly further afield.
Yep.
I'm going to get more for my money. I'm also going to be really careful which developers I'm going for. Some more notoriously than others have more consistent problems. So I'm going to make sure that I'm speaking to my agent, assuming that I don't have this knowledge myself, to make sure that I'm thinking about things that aren't necessarily thought of, because the first thing people tend to think about is, okay, what does it look like? And for me, it's like, yes, but what about how it's been built? And what I don't want to do is move into a new build property and then have all of these issues before I've even lived there for 2 years. If you think about properties, again, back in the UK, they're standing for hundreds of years and we've never changed a boiler. Here, you're changing water tank after pressure gauge, after water heater, and it's just...
Cement in the pipes.
It literally... and
Common one we're seeing
it's
at the
cement in
moment.
the pipes before you've even handed over.
Yeah.
And for me, I just want the easiest option for me. I want to go with a reputable developer, and I just want to walk in and be happy.
And so you'll be looking... What locations would you look at?
So
I'll tell you what, I'll up your budget $1 million. So 3.68 to be precise, million AED. So let's say $1 million US.
Yeah. So like I said, and we were talking about this before, I am so impressed with Dubai South, Emaar South, that
you
area.
said this earlier.
It's honestly, I walked into it and I felt like I was in Dubai Hills. It's been incredibly well built. It's up and coming, and I'm in Damac Hills too at the moment. So I've had the experience of going into a villa community that's felt 1 million miles away. There was nobody there. The community centre had maybe one tiny Carrefour inside of it. There wasn't a doctor's. There were no facilities for children. And then in this last few years, it's now this booming community. So I have that foresight where I think to myself, okay, I've experienced it, I'm moving in, and I'm looking at it long term. This 3.5, 3.6 that I'm going to invest for me in a family home in somewhere further afield, if I'm thinking about it in a few years' time when things are more built up there, the plans for these areas are going to be huge. So what's that 3.5, 3.6 million dirham villa then going to be worth in a few years' time?
5-6 mil, isn't it?
Literally.
Well, the one that we were looking at was the one on the golf course. 3.5 feels cheap.
Where in Dubai are you going to get that stunning golf course view for that price? You're not. And like I say, you could be anywhere in Dubai when you're in that back garden and you're looking. You could be in JG when you look at the view. You could be in Hillside when you look at the view. And it's stunning.
And we all believe that Dubai is going that way. You've got the airport, you've got Expo, you've got Jebel Ali launch, you've got these things that are happening. I was with a client and we were in Discovery Gardens. And I'm very pro it, 'cause it's one of the few, if only, I think, location, apart from towards the airport, where the metro comes off Sheikh Zayed and goes inland. Now, it's happening to JVC, as we know, and plans have been, I think, actually sped up for that. And when that happens to JVC, I think JVC...
It'll be unbelievable.
The demographic that it will pull in...
It changes everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
But then we were talking about that, and it was something I was talking to the client about. So it was like our jam behind in Discovery Gardens, etc. So that area there. And I was very surprised at already the interest, the rents that we're receiving on short let. I was scanning through, as I do, for long term. Yes, there's a lot of construction, but you are not like I am now. You're nodding when you're looking at it. You're like, I can see this. And just over there is Jebel Ali. Just over there is Dubai South. Just over there is Expo. You start looking at these landmark locations and what they're going to offer. That's the way it's going. So when you talk about Dubai South, that could be your next Dubai Hills.
100%. And you have to think back. When I was out here back in 2012, 2013, 2014, and Damac Hills, was 1 million miles away from everything.
Yeah, it was. You did make a packed lunch when you went out there.
Literally. People would be like, oh, can't go out there. I might be in Oman by the time I get there. Because people felt so strongly about how far away it was. And now Damac Hills 1 is that place that's so inland. And the rents are insane. And the sales prices are insane. But way back when, it was Email South. It was Dubai South of then. So we have to kind of, everyone wants everything immediately in Dubai. They want everything to happen for them within the next few months, or they feel like it's never going to happen. But I feel like if people just slow down, look at history, what's happened in Dubai, and then use that for foresight, it's not going to feel like a bad decision to move out further afield, because that will then be the Damac Hills one in terms of geographically. Everything that's all the plans for the area. I feel like
that's your hot tip.
That personally.
And then, so if you're an investor, now I know we're saying that you'll make, well, we see where the economy is in general, but if you look at how Dubai has performed, it's an area, it hands over, it's built by the right developer, it's on a golf course, the city's moving there. It is probably one of those occasions you're going to make money. All right, depends on the global economy, but put that to one side. You're now an investor. You're looking for a long-term tenant or short-term tenant. Where would you go and buy?
I would probably be more tempted with that amount of money to purchase multiple properties rather than put my whole amount into one villa or my whole amount into one expensive luxury apartment somewhere, because you just want that consistent income coming from multiple places. And that's going to be the best way to make money and to make money quickly. You want to buy something where you can very, very quickly make it a turnkey property with the help of us, so that you can get a tenant in there and it can start making money. Because the time that it takes to put furniture in there, to find a tenant, you want to minimize that, because you purchase, you hand over, you want to start making money straight away, and you want to do that in multiple places. So I would probably be looking somewhere like JVC, looking Sports City, for example. There are so many developments coming up in these areas. Samana Residence, have you seen on Hesse, opposite Talalga?
Yeah.
Samana, they've got great payment plans. Location's ideal. Obviously, they've got plans for Hesse as well, which they've been saying for a long time, but I feel like now they're going to be widening the roads, making it much more accessible. And I would purchase a few apartments in these areas, get them on short term, and that way you're hedging your bets in more than just one place.
I agree, just diversification.
Literally, yeah.
And Dubai is moving. Well, it's always moving, isn't it? It's always growing.
Yeah.
But there feels like, as we know, get my words out. We know that Dubai as a city is performing phenomenally.
Yeah.
We know that the GDP is growing. All this stuff is fantastic.
Yeah.
But it is an ongoing growing city. So I suppose to a point, the predictability we have to predict of what is the next hotspot and why has to kick in. And then we start talking about road modifications. So we know there's been big announcements recently about that and how they're changing it and easing traffic and opening up these different places.
Yeah, they have to keep up with the movement. So many people are moving here. There's more cars on the road that you've ever seen before. And nobody wants to sit on Hesse Street for an hour. That should really be like a 15, 20 minute trip. So it's essential.
Exactly that. So then so then with your money, go back as an investor, you're going to go multiple.
Yeah.
Would you then be buying in more well-known areas, or would you really then start looking out at these areas further out because it's better value for money and because of what could be coming? What would you do?
Depends how quickly I want to see results. I would probably in the first instance be looking at the likes of JVC, Sports City that's out but not out.
Yeah.
I think as an investor, if I'm looking at long term, then yes, something like Dubai South, Town Square they're still building in Town Square, for example.
Yeah.
In Town Square, again,
that's pretty far out.
You say that, but it's really not. And people say this to me all the time, and I think the length of time I've spent going from Marina to downtown versus from Marina to Town Square, Damac Hills, sometimes it takes me less time to get to these places because of the roads and because of the way they are. Expo Road, I barely see more than 10 cars on the road at any given time of day. But then when you're going from Marina to downtown, that can get crazy.
Oh, it's very different. Yeah.
And so geographically, yes, but for the length of time it takes you to get to these places, they're same. So if I'm looking,
I suppose you're covering more distance, but you're moving quicker.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's consistent as well. So if I'm looking as an investor and I'm looking at going long term, something like Dubai South, Damac Hills 2, Town Square, is a great option further afield. Short term hasn't quite reached there. Although having said that, we've just had guests stay with us in Damac Hills too, and there's such a lack of Airbnb short-let properties.
Yeah.
So if there is demand there, more and more people are moving to these places. More and more people are having family, friends come. They don't necessarily want their family under their feet for 2 weeks solid, but they want them close enough where they can just walk across to their villa that they're staying in. So again, it's all about education, and whereby people will say to you in the first instance, oh, it's not going to be any good here, it's too far away. But so many people are living here. So if there's that many people living there, there is demand, and people are going to want these for short let.
So okay, valid.
Yeah,
and I agree.
Both.
And it's a value for money, and also you're placing your bets for capital growth.
Yeah.
Because when the city moves out, well, it's out there, but you know what I mean. When it really beefs up, because Al Khail is almost becoming the centre of Dubai.
Yeah.
Where it was Sheikh Zayed. I mean, it's moving and it has to move that way.
It has to, because there's nowhere else.
There is nowhere else. It's into the desert or across to Abu Dhabi is what we're
saying.
seeing.
Dubai is not one of those places that will ever stop. They always want to have the most. They always want to have the biggest. They always want to have the best. So the money that's being reinvested into the city, because it lives off tourism. Like without tourism, without people coming, it doesn't have the money that it needs. So I can't ever see there being a stop. I feel like they will build and build.
But they do need population growth.
And
that's what enhances the GDP. So it's
until there's not an inch of sand left.
Yeah.
Just wait.
Just keep going.
Yeah.
Just keep going. So then, where would you, if I forced you, where would you then buy in areas that have been around with us for a while? What would be your pick? That's a long pause.
Yeah. Do you know? Because I'm very much, I love a modern property, and it's quite hard to find. Do I have an unlimited budget?
Okay, let's give you an unlimited budget. All right, a blank check. There you go. Go.
Blank check, but a realistic. So I love JG, Victory Heights, Hillside. This area for me is a great area because...
This is investing?
No, this is for me.
For living in? Okay.
Well, either, because people are wanting to live there. People will pay rent there. For me, it's either long term, and also if I'm then thinking about reselling, places like this will never devalue, in my opinion, because people always they have this reputation. The likes of JG, Victory Heights, Hillside, all these areas for me will always have demand. But they're also surrounded by great golf courses, great restaurants, great places for kids, such great family areas. So someone will always want to live there. And if I wasn't going further afield and I had that unlimited sort of budget, that's where I'd probably go.
But then as an investor,
so
you're not living in it. What about places like JBR, the Marina?
JBR and Marina, I feel like are timeless. Everyone always wants to buy in JBR and Marina. It's what people know. It's what's most commonly known. And you're always going to be successful in short term here because people that don't know Dubai necessarily well and people that are coming from anywhere else in the world, that's going to be their go-to because accessibility, everything's on the doorstep. You've got the holiday vibe. And it's generally a lovely place to be. The only thing that puts me off down there is traffic. But I don't have the patience for traffic. So.
No. And it's become quite... I've lived in there. I think we all have, haven't we? We've all done a stint living in JBRs and Marinas when we first come over. Is whenever I go in there, it feels more touristy.
I was there a few days ago, more than ever. Again, one of these places I only go to when I have people visit because people want to go there.
Yeah.
But when you live here and it's on your doorstep, you're not so bothered about going.
No, and it's weird to say that a place in Dubai feels touristy because it's Dubai and it's heavily tourist-induced.
Yes.
But every time I go there, it just feels more
than
commercial.
Ever. Yeah.
And it's just more going on. It's a great thing, but it just feels more full on.
Especially when you compare it to 2020, 2021, even the beginning of 2022, walking around these places, it was amazing. There was nobody around. And as the months have gone on and more tourism started picking back up, you're shoulder to shoulder in some instances. So certain times of day, trying to get a table in the Cheesecake Factory the other night, we were told, no joke, we were told it was going to be an hour and a half.
Wow.
And I've never, ever been in a situation where I've been told I'm going to have to wait an hour and a half for a table. And this was JBR.
Yeah. It's testament to what's gone on.
It is.
It's testament to how well the city has done.
Yeah.
And it's testament to how well the city has done off the back of something like COVID and continued with it.
Yeah.
This is what's catching me is, okay, that's great. It's moved forward. Okay, it's still going. All right, it's still going now. Okay, it's still going.
It's
and this
stop,
market
right?
is continuously. It's not going to stop. It's not going to stop.
It's not. It will not stop.
It is. It's just pushing hard. And I mean, it is almost like that perfect recipe. Almost like, perfect recipe is that it was the timing, which 99% of things is all about timing. But there wasn't enough stock. There were certain situations that evolved around the world that were negative, which pushed people to come. It all lined up. And it's continuously delivering. And we're seeing the level of property now that is selling over, give or take, 7.5, beg your pardon, 35 million dirhams. It's around 50 million US. Is the highest level of transactions ever seen. So then when you're looking at the level of wealth that's now pouring into the city and these sorts of things, and then they will come and say, okay, I've bought this phenomenal property, I'm now going to go and buy 5 smaller properties for investment. And so that, as a domino effect, it just spreads out and goes. So, but you do say that you think this momentum will slow in rentals. Do you think this will be the same in sales? Do you think this year's going to plateau with prices or transaction volume? What do you think?
I feel like it has to, because how much higher can it continue? We're literally at an all-time high. So I'm saying that from a personal perspective of, we have to be realistic. It can't go forever, but I also don't see a dip. So the only thing that it can possibly do is just stay static for a while. Then when things start launching, when, some places become more popular than others, you'll probably find rises in certain areas. But I honestly don't see it dropping because of the popularity, because of people coming into the city all the time. It doesn't make sense for it to drop.
Are buyers more cautious now?
Cautious
in the sense of 2 years ago, I was seeing just almost blank checks. I just want to buy. It was like the I wasn't here in the early 2000s, but you hear the stories. It was like when I was here, 2014. I just want to buy. I don't care what it is. I want to buy because the market was flying, and anything that you were buying was going up. And even 2 years ago, I was seeing people say, "I just want to get on the ladder. I just want to get on the ladder because it's moving." Are you still seeing that now?
I think there was when the interest rates were a little bit higher. It was making it a lot harder from an affordability perspective. Now that things are coming down a little bit, I do feel like buyers, it's not that they're not cautious, it's that I feel like they need to buy something in the fear that things are going to continue to increase or fear that there's not going to be stock. When I have buyers approaching me right now and say they want something in a certain building and we can't get hold of it, so then that is creating that almost silent panic where they're thinking, okay, well, maybe not this building. What can we just get in this area?
Yeah.
So there is a mild panic, but not in the same way. It's more due to a supply.
So it is softening. So what you're seeing 2 years ago to now, the buyer is less panicked and is taking their time, or
they're looking at their options.
Okay.
But I feel like because there's not as many options, it is creating that, well, I better just buy something, otherwise I'm going to have nothing.
But that's still panic buying them. So we could
in a different way. Yeah.
So this year you could still see prices going up. Although one thing that sticks out a sore thumb to me is that I know I'm looking at the market overall, so I know there's pockets that are different.
Yeah.
Is that we are back up to the highest levels. And what I'm hearing is people are saying, well, okay, where does it go from here? We know it got to this. Okay, there's my comfort blanket. But okay, now if it keeps going up, where does that leave us? Do you see what I'm trying to say? If it goes up to points it's gone before, you have that level of comfort knowing that you're paying for a product that was once valued at that because someone once paid it. Then when you start stepping 10% or 20% above that, people are like, okay, do I do this or not?
I think it's because with everything that happened with COVID and prices came down so much, there's been such a jump.
Yeah.
And a lot of people bought. So a lot of people are then looking at capitalizing on that and selling now. And we're looking at the influx of people coming into the country, more millionaires than we've ever seen. And it's still cheaper to buy in Dubai than most major cities across the world. So for as long as we're going to have these people coming in, wanting to invest their money in Dubai, because it's a lot more affordable than most other major cities in the world, developers are going to keep building. And whilst that's happening, we're not going to see a slowdown.
True. And there were times in the past that you definitely don't see now, where we were making clients 15-20%.
Yeah.
Now, we are still making them that because they bought X amount of time ago. Those that are now coming into the market,
that's the difference.
That's halved.
Yeah.
Now, when we compare it to what it was, oh no, look at that, it's halved, it's not great. But it's still 6, 7, 8% net. There's no tax.
Yeah.
There's none of this. Compare that now back to the UK, again, a generalization, 3% return on your money with all the red tape.
I think what people tend to do is they cling on to, but a few years ago,
it was
like this, or if I had done this, and there's a lot of regretful thinking of, if I had done this then, I would be getting this, so why can't you do it for me now? But as we've seen, the market is so fluid, and I think as long as we stay in that headspace of, but these people that bought then are getting this, we're never going to be happy with returns. I think if people look at the market as it is now, focus on that rather than what once was, people are going to be a lot happier and a lot more content with their investments and what they're getting, because comparing it to crazy returns, which of course was in a time where the world was in a really bad place. So it was affecting things in a way that wouldn't normally happen.
Yeah.
So if you look at the returns at face value, forgetting that happened, they're still amazing returns. And then compare them to other major cities in the world.
Oh yeah.
And that's what people need to do.
Above.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Not focusing on, well, I bought this property at half the price that under normal circumstances would never have ever happened, so of course I'm making 20-30%. You can't think like that.
No, agreed. Agreed. And the fact it is still head and shoulders, and let's not forget that in the West there is more red tape.
Yes.
And I was back in the UK, because now we've launched over there, and I forget the level of red tape. I know it, you forget it, and then it hits you like a steam train as to how much you've got to do to just take one step forward. Whereas in this city, you can, it's a breeze in comparison. And that's what makes it so fantastic still, is that you can move with this market pretty quickly and with ease. And that's the main thing. 3 tips you would give a buyer looking in this market now, what would they be? And that could be anything from location to the agent that you choose. Yeah. What tips would you give? Because I think this is a changing market. I'm with you on this. I think this coming year, I know it's crystal ball time, but I can't see the same momentum. And so should there be a little bit of apprehension perhaps? So what would your tips be for a buyer?
I feel like making sure you're speaking with the right agent, especially if you're not familiar with the market, because there are a lot of agents out there. You and I have both experienced, both professionally and personally, that will just say anything and create unnecessary panic, will tell you that something's available when it's not. Somehow agents still manage to put fake listings on portals, even though there's a lot of measures in place to stop that. And I think don't just jump in to speak to any agent. I feel like agent loyalty goes a long way as well. And you gotta gauge for people. And I understand that agents are there to serve a purpose, but I feel like you're also buying into that agent, because if you pick the right agent, you're gonna get the best result for you, and you're not gonna be left with a regretful purchase. You're not going to be told that something's one thing and then you're left with a surprise because your agent just wanted the sale. So do your research, look at the people that know what they're talking about.
We'll define a good real estate agent in 2 sentences.
A good real estate agent is somebody that treats you as if they're selling to a friend.
Yeah. Or themselves.
Yeah. Because someone that just wants to sell to you to make money is never going to do the right thing by you. And then that's going to have an adverse effect on the market, because it's going to create bad opinions. And we just want to make sure that we're in a situation where we're doing our research and we're speaking to the right people that have the right knowledge. We don't want to be dealing with agents that are just telling you, yeah, go view this property, it's open, and never message you back. You want to have that face-to-face consultancy feel. You want someone that knows what they're talking about. The number of agents that I'll contact myself and I don't get a response, and I get rude responses because they're too busy to deal with me. And I just think, well, why would I be paying you this commission?
That's very true.
If you're not actually doing, I'm paying you commission, what, just because you know the owner's details? And for me, that doesn't sit right. I'm providing a service and I want to give you something for that. And all I'm giving you is time and knowledge.
And also what we do, just move that on a bit more. And again, we aren't sales progressors. So we work with a company, don't we?
We do.
Who we then make sure that can progress that sale, because there is paperwork, there are different things that need to be done.
So important.
And we make sure that sale is then looked after.
Yeah.
That client is looked after. The buyer and seller, in fact, are looked after.
Exactly.
So it's these things that we will do to push that extra level of service, isn't it, to make sure that gets through.
There's so much that can go wrong with sales. Even when contracts are signed, there are so many hiccups along the way because you're dependent on so many entities, banks, developers. And that's why having the right company that has relationships with great sales progressors that know what they're doing is essential, because you want to have your transfer within the date that you've been told. You want all the paperwork to be correct and someone doing due diligence, which again isn't something that always happens. And you want your property when you're going to expect it.
Exactly.
And you're paying good money for this.
Yeah. And this is why we work with third-party companies as well, because we want arm's length. We want to make sure that sales chaser is acting in the best interests of their buyer and seller.
Exactly.
Not under our roof and what have you.
Yeah.
So what other tips would you give? So that's 2 tips?
Yeah.
What's your third tip?
My third tip would be, don't make hasty decisions because you're being pushed into it.
Okay.
I think, again, it kind of goes back to the agents. They tend to create this false panic. But similarly, don't give yourself too many options. I get a lot of buyers that will not know what they want, and they want to view everything in every single area of Dubai, and it makes the decisions so much harder for them.
Yeah.
I just think viewing properties is great and looking at different areas is great, but if you give yourself too much choice, you're never going to make a decision, and that's when you end up in a situation where you do nothing and you miss out on properties, and that's when you end up with regret. I find a lot of buyers will give themselves too many options. They've seen the perfect property. They've viewed the perfect villa at the perfect price, and they're so happy with it. They can't tell me anything that's wrong with it. And they don't make an offer because they want to view all these other areas that they'd never considered before, that they know has this issue, that issue. And then they think, okay, that the first option was the best one, but now it's gone.
Now I've lost it, yeah.
Now I've lost it.
I've seen that before.
It happens so often.
Yeah.
And then it's my fault.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
You're the broker.
Literally, yeah.
No, I understand that. Okay, all right. And then I think let's finish this on a key question. And please make sure it's the right answer.
No pressure.
Pardon?
No pressure.
No pressure. No pressure at all. No pressure at all. Short term versus long term.
Yeah.
What would you go for in this market here now today? Now you talk about depends on your personal situation.
Yeah.
But as we know, the situation of short let and long term has changed. Long term rents have gone up.
Yeah.
Short term is offering potential flexibility. Prices have gone up by 20-30%. Could this be the right time to sell? That then allows you to do it. And I've talked about it before, but I did it in Bay Central. I got 16% more than the asking price because it was vacant on transfer and the person could move straight in. But here now today, what do you think is the best option? And I'm looking at you.
This is not a black and white answer, Greg. This is not black and
Oh,
white.
here we go.
It's
Wriggle. Yeah.
No, of course, because...
Give a fair argument for both then. I'll
Okay,
settle on that.
This is the thing. Depends where my property is, number one. Some areas are not going to be suitable for short term. Some areas are going to be more suitable for short term, as an example. It depends on what my ultimate goal is. Am I just wanting consistent income? Am I just wanting to make money, forget about my property, and I don't really care as long as I'm seeing those 2-3 checks coming in every single year without hassle? Or am I someone that's emotionally invested in my property? Do I want to use it? Have I chosen a tourist area that I know is consistently going to perform in short term? That's why when I'm choosing to buy, I have these questions in my mind, I have these decisions made, and I speak to our short-let team, I speak to our brokerage side, and I get the best options on both sides. And there's never going to be a this is better or that's better as a whole. It's going to be down to what I want to gain out of it, how much I'm looking at investing, and what my long-term goal is.
Good answer.
Yeah.
Good answer. And this is what I like, is that we are impartial. We're going to do what's right by the client, and we will present the pros and cons for each situation.
There's no agenda.
There is no agenda. There is no agenda. So I will accept that answer.
Thank you.
Well done. Thank you very much. But thank you so much for coming in today and spending time with us. I know how busy you are. And look, we look forward to this year to see what happens.
It's so exciting.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you want to learn how AirDXB can dramatically increase the return on your asset, then drop us an email at gregory@air-dxb.com or visit our website, air-dxb.com.